Hi, I'm Linda Dashew. For the past year, Steve and I have been hard at work on a new boat design. We've had numerous emails and phone calls requesting information, so we made this brief video to give you some background on the design and a feeling for where we're headed with the boat. While this new Ocean Voyager may look radically different to you, she's based on our design work of the past 25 years. So perhaps a few historical comments are in order. All of the 50-some boats we've designed and built have had the same objective: safe and comfortable long-distance voyaging. We've worked hard at maximizing hull and rig efficiency so that couples can handle these boats in heavy as well as light airs. The single most important characteristic is steering control, and these boats can be driven hard with autopilot steering in heavy winds and big seas. If they handle well in heavy weather, you know they're going to be a dream the 99% of the time the weather is moderate. The same characteristics which create efficient sailboats able to be driven at relatively high speeds with very small rigs also make for efficient powering. With small engines, all of our designs power very nicely for long distances. If we slowed down to 10 knots, Beowulf consumed just 3 gallons of fuel per hour. These sailboats have better powering characteristics than modern trawlers. Because the new design, which we've been calling an unsailboat, does not have to create stability to offset sail forces, it can be even more efficient under power and more comfortable at sea than what we've become accustomed to with our sailing designs. What we'd like to do now is to spend a few minutes going over some basic theory of naval architecture. To begin with, you can get a rough idea of hull efficiency by looking at the bow and stern waves kicked up by any hull and comparing them to similar length hulls moving at the same speed. Take a look at these sailing images first. These boats are all moving at speed-length ratios above 1.3. In other words, faster than hull speed. That might sound pretty fast compared to most designs, but it is quite normal for our boats. Study the size of the bow and stern waves. In all cases, they are very small, and the stern wave doesn't really get started until it has reached the end of the boat. Now, let's look at some stern waves from video shot on board. The first video is on a 1980 design Intermezzo 2. She's broad-reaching at about 12 knots. 12 years later, here is Sundeer. This wake is of her doing a steady 15 knots, about the same speed in relation to her waterline length as Intermezzo's 12 knots. Notice how much flatter the wake looks. This is the first time we're seeing the stern wave forming behind the boat. 8 years later, and we refined things even more. Here's Beowulf cruising along at 17 to 18 knots. Notice how much flatter this wake is than the previous boats. And look how far aft of the boat the stern wake starts. There is a huge difference between the three boats. Obviously, Beowulf is a much more efficient design package. Let's switch to the bow. We don't have a lot of off-the-boat sailing shots of the older designs at speed, but here are a couple of Beowulf. She's doing 14 to 15 knots in these. The bow wave is very small. In fact, except for a small pressure release, there is almost no magnitude to the wave. It is mainly just a light spray. Back on board, Intermezzo 2 again, running at a steady 12. Here's the 72-foot ketch Lacura doing 14 knots. And now Sundeer again at 15 and 16. Beowulf is averaging 17 knots at this point. Once again, the magnitude of the bow wave is getting smaller as our designs have been refined. You could consider these dolphins to be efficiency indicators. They love to ride the pressure wave ahead of the boat. The bigger the pressure wave and the slower the boat, the less work they have to do. Sundeer is pretty sleek, but she still has enough of a pressure wave that these guys need only to flick their tails occasionally. But with Beowulf, the situation is different. She's faster, has a much smaller pressure wave, and this group of visitors has to work hard to stay up with us. What Steve and I are after with our new design is to adapt the same efficiency of our sailing designs to this new Power Voyager. The lean hull shape, steering control, and soft ride of our sailboats will contribute to a significant increase in comfort and speed, not to mention security in heavy weather in the new powerboat.